So do we have enough seats?
There's two there.
Okay.
You said over here. You want all four? No, that's okay. You want, she's up there.
Alina's sitting with us.
I don't know why I brought her. Oh, this is the box. Is it Bob? I didn't know if you remember me, but good to see you, Mom. Till the end.
You can't stand here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. You meant I can't see it.
So I'm going to ask you to step away from the camera, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. 我在。
Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Hello? Test 1, 2, 3, 4. 时间已经到了，请安静我们的心啊。
亲爱的弟兄姐妹们，我们的亲朋好友，我们现在要开始今天特别为李秀雄弟兄所办的追思礼拜，让我们一起低头，我们来做个祷告。我们亲爱的阿爸天父上帝，我们再次来到你的面前，恩典的主，你这一次把我们聚集在一起， 特别是要为参加我们所亲爱的、我们所敬爱的我们的李秀雄弟兄的追思礼拜。恩典的主，我们心里主要是蛮难过的，但是我们也有那个确信，我们也有那样的欢喜，因为我们知道，是吧？他已经在那天上那最美好永远的家乡。恩典的主，你说那真是好的无比，而且你也告诉我们说，我们敬爱的秀雄兄，他现在只是在主里睡着了，而且将来我们还有一天还要再次的见面。恩典的主，我们真是谢谢你，让我们再次的看到，是吧？一个蒙你所喜悦的人是如此的蒙福，是吧？一生一世都在你的保护跟看顾当中。恩典的主，我们向你恳求，你的荣耀的宝座现在就在我们当中，是吧？让我们整个的追思礼拜，是吧？我们不但纪念我们所爱的秀雄弟兄，我们一样，是吧？再次的，是吧？能够拥抱你如此的长阔高深的爱，是吧？我们谢谢你，愿你的名得着所有的荣耀。这样祷告、祈求和感谢，都是奉靠我主耶稣基督得胜的名求，阿门。
Please stand. Let's sing a hymn.
做伙来祈祷，
Let's pray together.
主用你的疼痛，用你话语来启示阮，伫天的愿望，甲阮的聚会同在，感谢靠主的名，阿门。伫礼拜日的即个暗时，菲比姐敲电话互我，阮事上的对话就讲，菲比姐你好，伊就开始讲一点，我看秀娘兄咧，伊甲我讲，去上帝遐，所以我迄阵真惊伊就讲哪会遮紧？知影秀娘兄无好势，但是哪会遮紧？伊就甲我讲，秀娘兄伫6月27日 会早起5点左右，伫即个困眠的中间，伊互上帝接去，转去天父的即个厝。伫当时呢，兄弟姊妹来讲，咱虽然心内真毋甘，但是咱若是来回顾伊的一生，咱会真欢喜，为着伊即个过程，有一个 ending， 咱感觉这是一个真感谢的代志。
At around 5 o'clock in the morning on June 27th, Brother James happily set foot on his way home in his sleep and returned to the embrace of his Heavenly Father. In the hearts of brothers and sisters sharing the same faith, although we are sorrowful, we sincerely celebrate that he has come to an end in his life journey, returning to his eternal home.
伫保罗伫即个肉体生命即个伫要到最后即个上尾了伊写提摩太前书，伊写了2句真有名即个话语提摩太后书的第4章第70到第80讲，我已经征战好的征战，已经尽跑走的路程途中，已经守所信的道理。对答了后，有公义的免流，要守死互我，就是主做公义的审判，是伫迄日要互我的。毋若守死互我，也守死互囡仔，羡慕伊显现的人。
When Paul's physical life on earth was about to end, he wrote these 2 famous sayings in 2 Timothy. I have fought a good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have longed for his appearing.
虽然我来到芝加哥，甲小影熟悉，只有2年3个月，但是感受到伊的热情，感受到伊真侪特殊的即个个性，一个基督徒的个性，伊常常看到我就讲，牧师牧师讲你好无？伊声真嘹亮，所以我有几点对着伊的即个甲我斗阵接触的即个过程，我感受到伊即个信仰的香味，我来甲大家来分享。第一就是小兄，伊有一个传福音的热情，伊对台湾有一种台湾情，对故乡的少年，无因为伊离开故乡久来袂记的，所以伊常常甲我讲伊讲，牧师，我想要转来台湾传福音来教英语传福音。我讲足好的，因为我嘛是为着宣教，转去台湾，我来甲为着这老妇女牧师讲，要拯救骨肉至亲的即个心情，转去台湾有9年的时间，所以我常常甲伊谈论你去庄脚教英文安怎这是我常常甲伊咧讲感受到伊迄个对福音的热情，对台湾的疼。
Brother James was diligent and lived a simple life. He was not only responsible, but also had a funny sense of humor. He fathered an admirable and sweet family, developing close relationships with his children. He did his best to be an excellent husband and a father. He worked hard to serve the church and to spread the gospel. He kept his faith and finished the race. Although I have known him for only 3 years and 3 months, I could perceive the beautiful relationship between him and God from his words and the deeds. There are a few elements I'd like to share with you in particular. The first is he was passionate about evangelism. When he was young, he traveled far away from his hometown. He always dreamed of going back to his home in Taiwan to spread the gospel by teaching English. though this dream was never accomplished. His enthusiasm to spread the gospel to his people had always been burning in his heart.
第二点，伊看重11封信，吼，逐个月的固定的日子，吼，伊就摕伊的奉献来教会来放伫奉献箱。虽某咱即马无聚会，无即个实体有一年外无聚会，总是伫迄个固定的日子，秀王兄一直拢来，吼。虽某到最后，伊身躯真厌世，也真软弱。讲秀王兄，你毋免安尼家己规遮遮辛苦，但是伊坚持，这是互我感觉非常感动的所在。
The second, he valued tithing. While quarantines at home during the pandemic, and even when he became weak later on, he still drove to the church every month on certain days to put his offerings in the offering box, even though the church was closing during that time.
第三点，伊非常看重传教者的祝福，伊尊重即个上帝所果受我以为，吼。咱即马阮咧读撒母耳下传，也看到大必安怎尊重扫罗，所以我会想到讲，秀王兄即个行为，互我感觉非常的感动。就是伫即个2020年的4月初10是伊的生日，伊透早，伊就来甲我，差不多嘛无透早啦，差不多11点左右，伊甲我试电话，讲牧师啊，你来地下室，伊敢穿一领红的衫，真欢喜。伊讲，你看我煮猪脚，搁煮面线，伊煮的，搁摕一个蛋糕。伊讲牧师，你为我祝福，今日是我的生日，你为我祝福，我非常的感动。伫即个疫情的中间，伊会当安尼家己准备伊即个猪脚面线甲鸡卵糕，所以我甲我的先师师长，阮就去地下室，我就为伊祝福，这是满满的祝福，为伊换手祝福。祝福伊会行顺，祝福伊会行利，就是伫迄个交陪中间，我感受到讲，伊对一个传教者的重视，重视对牧师来祝福，所以迄时阮做伙翕相，真欢喜。但是阮也是遵守政府的规定，阮拢挂口罩，无斗阵啉食，阮秀王兄就分一寡食物互我摕转去阮兜食，这是我对伊的感想，也是感觉。足感动，伊看重传教者的祝福。
He valued that. The third is that he valued the blessings of God's servant. On the morning of April the 10th, 2020, he came to the church and invited my husband and me to the basement. He dressed neatly and prepared pigfoot noodles and cakes. He then asked me to pray for him on his birthday. We took pictures to commemorate this day and share the food. We took the food home to eat because gatherings were forbidden during the pandemic.
第4点，伊真看重伊所领受的积分。伊看重无论是传诗歌，阮有一个热灵团契，就是拜四节气，或者较年长的人做伙，唱诗，来分享一寡健康的知识，来谈论。一寡安尼较轻松的代志，甚至做赞美操。伫即个过程，我捌请伊领诗歌。伊安尼咧领诗歌，伊拢搁准备，搁甲我讨论，唱即条好势无？唱迄条好势。轮到伊聚会的时阵，伊一定真早来，一定真早来，穿甲非常的整齐。伊对即个色彩真有即个特别的即个分别，伊是一个真。有艺术化的人，真罗曼蒂克的人，所以伊伫即个服侍，即看重服侍的即份，互我感觉讲，上帝也看重伊的囝儿即款服侍。伫即个阮4月17，就是伫4月中旬的时阵，阮有一个即事会，需要用英文来回答，对有一个养老院甲阮的即个要求要照停车停代志。秀王兄迄个时阵。伊就帮助阮做即个记录，做记录。伊所记的即个到尾看到伊所写的即个记录，非常的清楚，文笔也真好，这是互我真感动。到即个6月初3，阮有一个即事会，要为着 即个开放礼拜堂做礼拜，伊就请假，伊就请假，即无随便，伊袂讲我拍片，我袂领假，伊就请假，非常看重即个积分。伊讲牧师啊，我可能无气力，我可能无气力参加，这是伊最后一摆，这是互我感谢，为着伊来感谢上帝，拣选这样的重视积分的工人。
The fourth one, he valued serving. On April the 17th, Brother James attended his last deacon meeting ever. He prepared the meeting minutes in English in order to reply to the relevant organization. His writing was smooth and the narrative was clear. On June the 3rd, the day of the deacons' meeting, he requested his absence in advance because he was too weak to participate. At that time, his appetite and the physical strength were very poor. In addition, when serving as a worship leader or leading the fellowship to sing, he always prepared with a serious attitude. I'm very touched by his servant attitude.
圣经有写讲也我讲尊重我的，我也要看重伊；看轻我的，伊也要接受看轻看到小王兄一世人要尊重上帝，看重甲上帝所立的约，所以伊看重伊所领受的积分，看重伊做一个基督徒爱做的代志到最后，所以会当讲伊世间的路伊已经跑走应尽的路。虽讲咱无可能亲像保罗安尼做真好的福音的工作，总是伫伊领受的即个恩赐内底，伊做人的恩赐内底已经尽伊应该跑走的路程。虽然伫即个以上来到即个尾流，伊真野性食物件，食袂落。迄阵我就感觉讲食袂落就无好。人直直散落，咱来看头拄仔所放的相，伊最后一遍5月初甲因妹妹做联翕相，迄个时阵已经3真岁啊迄阵就3真岁。我甲因妹妹讲，这是恁足宝贵斗阵的时间，足宝贵斗阵的时间，因为我感觉迄个小兄迄个瘦会互我烦恼，会我担心但是伫即个6月27。伊伫困眠的中间受上帝接转去，这是一个真大福气咱一般无信的人看即个转去上帝的厝，敢若真遥远但是你若准备好要面对即个永恒的家乡的时阵，伫即个永恒甲现在，就是一个按照1万年久的即个空间的转变尔。永恒甲现在是一个1万年久。弟姊妹，你准备好未？这是对伫小王兄即个代志，我想到的即个价值，即个警醒
According to the scriptures, the Lord said that those who honor me, I will honor, but those who despise me will be disdained. He respected God throughout his life, valued the covenant he made with God, and respected the duty given to him by God. He served him faithfully to the end. It can be said that he has finished his race. In a world, God welcomes his beloved son with mercy. Although Brother James was in a late stage of cancer, he did not suffer painfully. He was quietly led back to the embrace of the Father in his sleep. This is a great blessing. Some people may believe the way back to heavenly home seems remote and difficult, but when you are ready to face your eternal home, time and the space are transformed in an instant without the slightest pain. This also reminds me, are we ready?
即摆看到小王兄的即个肉体即个危害，我要甲讲， 上兄随某，你即个嘹亮的歌声，阮袂知阁听去。你真笑容，敢若太阳共款的笑容，阮也无可能再看去。但是，希望遐你听主，听到的心，是定做阮上好的笑脸，甲要得。
Although we will no longer hear the echoes of the beautiful singing, nor see the kind face of Brother James, his desire to love the Lord and the church encourages us and remains in our memory.
Can we raise? The next song is just like Brother James, how he lived his life. All the way my Savior is. 主因抓我一生路径，主因我更无所有，世界高，主因抓我心，让他要一主温柔，主属天感受的福音，高兴心他主家境，我清心无论下代志，主后大行随我命，我清心无论下代志，主后大行随我命。主因抓我一生路，但见路中主追我，只能用福恩为中我，令我命命有指望。我靠无虽有时有抓，我心我爱念之光，留住对我真有救我，因此喜乐为我传，留住对我真有救我，因此喜乐为我传。主因抓我一生路径，主领来的地风雨，完全平安主的救赎，你的脸我的主，因为我要面对光明，面对归灵更的天。你要他的应许我定，要手引抓我一生。你要他的应许我定，要手引抓我一生。
Hello, my name is Daniel. Firstborn and one and only Sonny, as Dad would like to say to other people. I am the last person to see him alive because I was staying at the Skokie house trying to provide care for Dad when things got really, really bad. Recently, I saw a painted mural while jogging along the shores of Lake Michigan, right here. And I quote, it said, "Part of the journey is the end." My father had a full lifelong journey, and everyone here or watching from far away was a part of that journey in some way or somehow. And I thank you all on behalf of Dad. A bond between father and son is more than just genetics. Some of you may have already seen this on my Facebook page when I posted about Dad passing away. memories and experiences throughout my entire life that all adds up into the person I am today. Like teaching me baseball for the first time as a little boy on an elementary school field, playing catch with a glove that was too big and a wooden bat that was just too heavy. But I remember watching many Cubs games on 3WGN TV as a little boy by going downstairs into a cool dark basement on a television that was built inside one of those big wooden furniture boxes. I don't know if anyone remember those. Today the Cubs are no longer on free WGN TV. They moved on to their own cable channel, and Dad didn't want cable. But at least he saw the Cubs win the World Series in 2016. And just last month, on June 12th, there was a rare free Cubs game on national TV against longtime rival the St. Louis Cardinals. And the Cubs crushed the Cardinals 7-2 at Wrigley Field, and he messaged me how much he really enjoyed watching that game. This was the last Cubs game that Dad ever saw Cubs win. Dad taught me how to camp in a tent and, fish at Lake Somerset. This is west of Rockford, Illinois, before building a second home there. He taught me how to clean a fish using just a pair of scissors. Snip here, like a surgeon. Maybe he learned this from Akong, his father, who was a doctor. Could be. He supported my decision going to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and therefore, helped finance a much more expensive out-of-state tuition. But I can still remember, Dad dropping me off in college when I was scared to be really alone for the first time away from home, with just watching him drive away from the school cafeteria. But from then on, I realized that although he tried influencing me, he never really pressured me into being anything that what I became today. He let me be free, and even though we don't always share the same opinions or beliefs, Dad just let me be me, and for that I am forever grateful. Friends and family picnic at the Chicago FBI office. Every year, Dad would introduce me to his coworkers as someone who looks like should be an FBI agent. But and actually, I did apply for the FBI special agent position, and I failed to pass even the first round of testing. So that wasn't going to happen. So last Father's Day barbecue was recently held at my condo on June 19th, and as we were walking slowly and quietly out into the courtyard, Dad with his walking cane clicking on the hard concrete, click, click, click. I tried to make him promise something that I knew couldn't be kept. I wanted him to come back for another Father's Day barbecue next year, and he just smiled, and he laughed and chuckled, and just said, "Well, that's up to the good Lord." Only a week later, during Dad's last days, he couldn't remember things, say things, and needed help going to the bathroom. Oddly, he was able to remember his password on his phone to check his messages one last time. In the end, though, he barely spoke a word and just gestured with his arms what he wanted or needed. Like he would lift an arm up, which means, "Please help me up. I need to go to the bathroom." But every time Dad was put back in bed and physically hoisted back up using the bed sheet underneath him, he always managed to say, "Thank you. Thank you. Thank you." These were Dad's last words. I put him to bed one last time around 11:30 p.m., checked on him again around 3:30 a.m. He was still here with us. I woke up around 6 a.m., checked on Dad one last time, and he was gone. His body was still warm to the touch, probably passed away between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. The hospice nurse came to the house and confirmed the official time of death at 7 a.m. While waiting for the hospice nurse, I kept gently shaking Dad, hoping that he would somehow breathe. Or I would just sit by the bed in his favorite massage sofa chair, calling out, Dad, 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 hoping that he would somehow wake up. Even in these last sad moments, help build and strengthen my relationship with Dad, because the bond between father and son is more than genetics. Thank you. I love you, Dad.
Auntie Christine, Daniel, Corey, Joanne, Cece. Dear relatives of the Lee family, colleagues, and friends of Uncle James, greetings. And it is with heartfelt appreciation to see so many have come to attend today's memorial service, as well as watching on Zoom. My name is Ben Lee. I'm the nephew of Uncle James, or as Uncle James would call me, Benji, and forever the Lee family. He and my father, Dr. Chi-Jen Lee, were brothers, and they came from a large family of 9 in Taiwan with 5 brothers and 4 sisters. Some of his sisters are here today. When my father passed away 14 years ago in 2007, Uncle James graciously spoke at his memorial service and brought his family to attend, and I'm honored to pay my respects today. Dad and Uncle James had a caring relationship between brothers, supporting each other. Growing up, when Uncle James wanted a tutor before the college entry exam in Taiwan, Dad arranged help for him. They supported each other through life and are reunited, now in heaven. Uncle James was a man who loved life. His laughter, jolliness, and sense of humor was infectious. Over the years since my dad died, Uncle James and I would email from time to time, and he always had comforting words of advice, perspective on life, and insights on the family. I remember the last time I saw him, we had arranged to meet here in Chicago, and he fought through hours of traffic, and we were trying to meet here in the city, only to find out that there was a citywide marathon which blocked roads and cars from getting to the hotel. And finally, Andy and Joanne pushed his wheelchair the remaining blocks so that we could spend some time together and catch up. His family went to extraordinary lengths to serve their father and had been an example to me of a servant's heart. Uncle James was full of life, optimistic, insightful, with a quick wit and a keen sense of humor. Many times when he went back to Taiwan for a visit, he would ask to get together with his brother or sister to have a special worship to remember their mother, and he was always the speaker. The family values which he demonstrated, he also instilled in his children who are honoring their father today. He and Auntie Christine raised 4 wonderful children, Daniel, Corey, Joanne, and Cece. To his surviving children, your father loved you, he cherished you, and always wanted to provide for his family. When my daughter Sophia was young, I used to ask her if she would take care of me when I was old. And thankfully, she still says yes. And I know that Uncle James' kids took care of him through his final months. The countless trips to the doctor's office, delivering meals, trying to work through the confines of COVID isolation, calling to check on him, and yes, they did take care of their dad. And all of you honored your father over the past several months in how you served him. There were even times during COVID when you stood outside the house to let your parents see the grandkids, but eliminate the concern of infection. Uncle James was a man of deep tradition. One can say that at any Lee family gathering, food is a symbol of celebration, of happiness, and the blessings which overflow. At family get-togethers, there was always special attention paid to make sure that everyone, no matter how young or how old, no one would go home hungry. Uncle James had a way of honoring the celebration even further. He had a tradition of delivering a sermon message before the meal was served. Christmas, Thanksgiving, holidays were deeply rooted in this tradition. And as the custom continued over the years, no one was allowed to eat until after the message was over. And sometimes the sermon probably felt like an eternity. Ultimately, the honor was rotated among the family from time to time, and one could be tempted, but it was understood that until the message was over, the food should not be touched. It was his way of honoring God, as well as demonstrating to his family the priorities which he held fast in his heart: God, family, and then food. There's a Taiwanese tradition of bringing pastries during the engagement ceremony. And when my mom and dad were engaged in Taiwan, Uncle James always found a way to make them feel special. And normally these types of mooncake pastries are quite small, about the size of a hockey puck. But Uncle James had found these gigantic, foot-long, huge mooncakes and brought 100 for the ceremony. It showed his generosity, his willingness to help out his brother, as well as how much he loved to eat. Uncle James reinvented himself many times during his life and his career. He worked as a computer programmer, he worked for the airlines, and he finished his career working for a government agency, which at the time I thought was a super confidential secret. He was very proud of his work. And one day my mom and dad got a call that Uncle James had to go to training in Quantico, Virginia, to work for this super secret government agency that no one could know about. One of the worst kept secrets as the years passed was it was indeed the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And as I saw photos from the family gatherings, the picnics, the FBI banners would fly, towels, t-shirts with the logos plastered on them, and the last card I received from him, the front cover had the family plastered with the FBI logo printed on aprons for cooking. I didn't know that existed. He was super proud of his job. And there are many ways to describe Uncle James. Uncle James, the family man, the husband, the father, the deacon of his church, the baseball enthusiast, the fisherman, and the only Asian Santa Claus I've ever seen. This past July 4th weekend was supposed to be one last family trip to the lake house. The lake house was a place of many memories, which I'm sure you remember: the fun times, the meals, the laughter over the many years. It was a place of rest. And I'm sure Uncle James is looking down from heaven smiling. He's ready to give you some advice when you get to heaven. He's looking down and preparing his next sermon before the meal. He's arranging his photos, perhaps getting together with his friends to sing karaoke, belting out his favorite Taiwanese song at the top of his lungs, and he's watching over the Chicago Cubs. From growing up in Ilan, studying in Tainan, to his many years here in Chicago, he always made people laugh and put a smile on their face. In the book of Matthew, chapter 25, verse 23, in the parable of the talents, the servant who had good stewardship came back to his master and replies, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And as Pastor Wong mentioned earlier, Uncle James, like the Apostle Paul, who also on his deathbed said, "For I am already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time of my departure is near." Uncle James, you have fought the good fight. You have finished the race, and you have kept the faith. Uncle James was a man who dearly loved the Lord and his family, and who lived his life worthy of praise. Thank you very much.
My father had a character that was filled with faith, joy, and humor. He would do anything, and I mean anything, to spice up a family picture. He would stab a fork in a banana, hold it up, plop on a Pokemon hat. He would do the bunny ears countless times. He would, for Valentine's photo with my mom, he would stick candy lips on one cheek, and then it would appear on the other cheek in the next photo. He would do anything for his 4 kids, even in singleness. In 2 of his Father of the Bride speeches, he advertised that his single children were, and I quote, very, very available. I'm sure a lot of you remember that. He advertised, like I said, that first couple weddings, then after a collective scolding for his third father of the bride's speech, he very carefully behaved himself. But by then, something felt like it was missing, like uncontrollable laughing. I'm thankful for my dad's character of faith in God. He helped to start Evangelical Taiwan Church and was a driving force in it for 40 years, where the 4 of us children met many wonderful shepherds, friends, and even 2 husbands. He led family devotions in our home for decades, in spite of 4 naughty kids giggling and playing around, until we finally matured enough to listen and enjoy his short sermons. He laid hands and prayed over each and every grandchild from their earliest years. My father was very proud of his English degree, even though he could struggle with pronouncing some of the more difficult words, like advising me once, "Don't be complacent," which I said, "Dad, did you mean complacent?" Which is probably why I, instead of saying melancholy, would say melancholy, and instead of saying spatula, I would say spatula. But at age 65, after 30 years of struggle in the computer programming industry, he finally did get to use his English degree by achieving his dream job, as Benji said, the super secret job as a translator for the FBI. He was a very flawed, very human being, but I also knew what was best about him. He had this gift of understanding and of choosing just the right words that gave me confidence in every crisis. His words stay with me at crossroads after a broken relationship, saying, "You won't always feel that way." And he was right. Because of my dad's belief in me, I raised my GPA high enough to transfer to a much more competitive university. When I faced a time of crisis in my teacher licensing, his words were, "You can always go out, get more work experience, and then decide if you want to come back." Which is exactly what I did, and now I've been in a career I have loved for 19 years because of him. My dad knew my potential way more than I did at the most vulnerable and fragile times in my life. His last advice to me was, take care of your siblings. I thank my dad, my brother, and all 3 Bosca, Lee, and Tao husbands for being men that we can always count on. My dad's lifelong support gave me confidence when I was unconfident, security when I was insecure, direction when I was drifting, guidance when I was lost, motivation to try again when I failed at first. Dad, I hope to be for my child and students what you are to me. I will always miss you, Dad, and I will long to see you in heaven the way you always long to see your loved ones in heaven. I know that hope of seeing you again will comfort me when I think of heaven. I will always, always love you and be grateful for you.
Hello, I'm Joanne, and second daughter of James. I found a letter I wrote to my dad about 8 years ago for his 75th birthday, and it pretty much says some of my favorite things about him, so I just want to share a little bit with you. So, dear Dad, what a full life you've lived. One of my favorite pictures is of you holding me upright, nestled in the crook of your neck when I was a newborn fresh out of the oven. You were sitting on the couch by the window, the sunlight shining in, patting my bottom, a picture of peace and love. I'm proud to have put in hours of patting 2 little bums of my own. I praise God for allowing me to carry on the Lee heritage through Faith and AJ, and hopefully one more grandchild, which we had through Alina. What a blessing. You can enjoy your grandchildren in their early years. Dad taking me out to play baseball in the front yard, teaching me how to hold the bat and hit like Andre Dawson or Ryan Sandberg. Riding a bike for the first time, he would run behind me, give a mighty push, and shout when I could fly away on my own. Getting behind the wheel of a car and helping me attain my first license. peeling mangoes with a paring knife, cutting off a piece at a time, distributing them around the table, camping and holiday trips to Lake Somerset, quiet time in the basement office, reading his Bible or early morning devotionals in the Somerset office, singing loudly in the basement, practicing for church choir, laughing around the kitchen table, watching hours of Cubs baseball while resting my head on his big soft belly, yelling "Dad" when he would shout profanities at the TV set, the only time I would hear him use curse words. Taking away driving privileges for a month after I bumped the neighbor's garage, backing out of the driveway. Dad worked many jobs, long hours when I was young, but he made time for me. He hugged me and held me on his lap often. What I treasured about him is he showed me happiness is found in loving one another, especially your family. And love comes from being a sacrifice, not about having abundance of possessions. I now know his ambition was to follow Christ and to lead his family to do the same. Dad demonstrated Heavenly Father's love. He cared about my relationship with our Creator God, and church was a priority and normal part of our daily lives. Dad was passionate about singing, fishing, writing, and enjoying nature, as you heard today. On his travels to Taiwan, he sent us emails about the beautiful scenery and fun reunion with old friends and relatives in the homeland. Dad made me belly laugh. He would say shocking things that made my jaw drop. One of the craziest things he did was put on all his birthday gifts while we were dining in a public restaurant, including a pair of Cubs boxers. So then it became a fun Christmas tradition to wear all our gifts in the family photo. Dad talked about heaven since I was a little girl. Now heaven is closer than ever. I'm strangely at peace. I'm confident his future is secure in a place beyond my wildest imagination, and a warm welcome awaits him. No more doubt, no more hearing aids, bladder problems, high blood pressure, no more watching diet, no more denying your sweet tooth, pour on the soy sauce. One last memorable moment was my wedding day, and you were so nervous to do the daddy-daughter dance. We had to hold practice and do it over and over until you felt comfortable, and you nailed it. You even got down on one knee for the big finale. And let's not forget the big speech, the one my friends affectionately label the best father's wedding speech ever. I still don't know why, since you basically used my wedding day to get dates for all your single children. Yeah. Some of Dad's famous quotes. Let's be unconventional. Mrs. Lee, the bus is leaving. There's only one Joannie. 3 cheers. Hip hip hooray. The key to parenting is patience. Lots and lots of patience. Dad loved his reading his Reader's Digest and classical music. He would sit at the dinner table and ask us to play Furley's Moonlight Sonata and other famous pieces. I love you, Dad, and we'll miss you. Your daughter, Jojo, 3rd of 4.
Hello, and thank you for celebrating my dad's life. My name is Cecilia Tao. I am my father's youngest daughter. Growing up, I was Daddy's little girl. He always described me as, "This is the final one." And I often hear stories about how I would sit on Daddy's lap while he would declare, "This is the final one." It's not easy having your 3rd and 4th child in your 40s. It's also not easy raising 3 daughters. I remember when Alan and I got engaged in 2007, I called home and Dad answered. I said, "Dad, I'm engaged." And my dad's response was, "Oh, that's wonderful. Which daughter is this?" My dad knew just how to handle me and my strong personality. He gave words of affirmation, not words of doubt. He knew I put too much pressure on myself, so instead of putting more pressure on me, he told me he believed in me, that he wasn't worried about me, and that I could handle whatever came my way. To have someone believe in you the way my dad did, that made a difference in my life. I'll leave you with one more story. In 2008, I started asking my parents about the future. I said, Dad, Mom, we don't live forever. Can we meet to talk about what are your wishes should one of you pass away? My mom's response was, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. And my dad's response was, okay. So in 2009, we had our family meeting. The Lee kids were sitting around Joanne and Andy's condo waiting for our parents to arrive. In walks my dad with a huge smile on his face, carrying a huge, fat, black binder. He plops it on the table, and in his loud, booming voice, he says, okay, I'm ready to plan my funeral. Dad had been excitedly planning his own funeral for a long time. He already wrote his own obituary, the very one that you read on his website. He had his hymns picked out for today's program, and he even picked out his favorite memoirs and photos, all with descriptions as to why they were so precious to him. That same black binder that he started 12 years ago is the very same one that's sitting on the table back there. This story tells you two things about my dad. Number one, he's never been afraid of death. He knew exactly where he was going and that it would be a good and perfect place in heaven. Number two, he didn't want us to worry. So much that he planned some of his own funeral so that we would be less burdened when he passed away. Today, I'm at peace because I know where my dad is at. A few weeks ago, Dad emailed the very words that he wanted on his tombstone. He just wanted it to say, gone home. Gone home. Dad, I know you're listening today. We're thankful that you've gone home to be with the Father. We love you, we miss you, but we'll see you again someday. Love, Daddy's little girl.
起立来领受祝福。愿主耶稣基督伫十字架顶为咱流宝血的救赎的恩典，天父上帝永远无改变的主爱甲怜悯，圣神时时刻刻的交通、保护、引带，甲在座咱大家永远伫地，到永远无煞。阿门。
Our family would like to say thank you for joining us today, for reading with us and celebrating our dad's life. After the service, we invite you to Evangel Taiwan Church. The address is on the front bulletin here. Please join us around 4 o'clock, where we're going to continue to celebrate our dad's life, where you can share stories of our dad and his funny jokes to us. Also, after service, our family will be up front here, where you can give your condolences. But also you can give your condolences at the reception too. If you give priority to those who can't make it to the reception, and have them with condolences first. And then lastly, our dad loved to make people smile. And there's one gesture he would do, and I thought we would do it, and take a picture of it, and put it on his tombstone. So Bob, can you come to the front if you could? So, on the second to last page, right here, actually, we're gonna do. If you like to do this thing with this. Okay, you guys know this, right? So we're gonna do one quick picture, and we're gonna print it, put it on the tombstone, and say goodbye. So, hands up here. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Goodbye, Dad. All right, there you go. Dad, we love you. You guys are dismissed. Thank you.